A man in the prime of his life, handsome and a doctor, walked through my door one day and said, "The woman I've loved for 12 years has been cheating on me with my unemployed brother. I found out 6 months ago, and I still love her." He was 30 years old, but his eyes looked like those of a 60-year-old. It was obvious he wasn't sleeping. "My brother works odd jobs," he said, "watches games, drinks, hangs around. But her, she's a doctor. I don't understand why she's with him." His breath caught. "My brother abuses her, cheats on her, but she can't leave him." There was such deep desperation in his voice. "I still think about her. I worry about her." And then he added, "But the real problem, that's not the real problem." He lifted his eyes, and in that look, I saw that there was something much darker in this story. After saying those words, he sat in silence for 10 minutes. Then I asked how he found out. He closed his eyes. "One evening, the three of us were at my mom's house. Family dinner. Both of them said, 'I have work.' They got up, left, I stayed." His fingers tightened on his knees. "Then I saw that my girlfriend had forgotten her phone." His voice trembled. "I read the messages. For years, they'd been meeting without me knowing. While she was writing 'I love you' to me, she was also writing to my brother. They were both lying to me." His hands clenched into fists. "And my brother had always been like that. He'd take everything from me." The silence that followed that sentence spoke volumes. Some sessions, my clients heal as they talk, but some stories stayed with me. Today, I'm going to tell you one of those lives. If you're listening to this story and you have things you can't keep inside, share what's on your mind in the comments and where you're listening from. I read every comment. I hear every story. If you want to stay updated on therapy stories don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. If this story touches your feelings, you can support me by liking. I'd love to hear your story someday too. If you want me to share your story in my next video, you can send it to the email address in my profile. Remember, our stories heal, even just a little, when they're shared. Let's call him Daniel. When Daniel came to me, he looked physically strong. Broad shoulders, good posture. But the moment he walked in, that posture collapsed, as if the weight he carried was much heavier than his body. When he sat in the chair, he placed his hands on his knees, interlaced his fingers, gripped them tightly, so tight that his knuckles turned white. In the first session, he didn't speak for a long time. He just stared. At the window, the floor, the ceiling, but not at me. He avoided eye contact, as if he feared that if I looked into his eyes, I'd see all his secrets. Then he formed a sentence, very slowly, choosing each word carefully. "I met her when I was 18, he said. "She was my classmate in college. The first time I saw her, I knew she was the one." His chest rose with a deep breath. "I confessed my feelings. She said she loved me too. It was our first relationship. Everything was perfect." But the tone in his voice, that word perfect didn't sound perfect at all. As if he was repeating a lie to himself. "The relationship lasted 3 years, he continued. "Then I finished medical school. She graduated in her field too. We talked about marriage, made future plans." His hands became fists, but something started to change. I didn't notice. Or I didn't want to notice. I asked what changed. He closed his eyes. "Her phone," he said. "She was constantly on her phone, but she'd hide the screen from me. She'd say work is calling. She'd say my mom is texting. I believed her. Because I trusted her." There was such deep regret in his voice, as if he hated himself for trusting. "Then she started going out often," he went on. "She'd say I have a work meeting. She'd say I'm meeting friends. When I was on call at the hospital, she was out. When I was at mom's house, she'd say there's an emergency and leave." He swallowed hard. I never suspected, because she was smart, successful, a doctor. Why would she lie?" When he said that sentence, there was such painful irony in his voice. "And my brother." His jaw tightened. Even saying that word seemed difficult. "My brother was always around mom's place. He was unemployed. Sometimes he'd do odd jobs, but mostly he'd just hang around watching games, drinking, doing nothing. I'd give him money because he was my brother." The hatred in his voice, the resentment buried in that word brother. "One day I noticed that my brother was also going out often," he said. "He'd say, meeting friends. He'd say got work. But my brother had no friends, no work. But he trailed off. I didn't even think about it, Because it wouldn't occur to me. There was a long silence. I asked what wouldn't occur to him. He opened his eyes, looked at me, and what I saw in that look, such deep pain, such a deep wound of betrayal. That they could be together, he said. His voice dropped. It wouldn't occur to me. Because she was my girlfriend. He was my brother. How could it be? And that question, that how could it be question, was like the summary of the entire story. But it had happened, he added quietly. It had been happening for years, and I didn't know. I asked how he found out. He put his hands to his face, stayed like that for a long time. Then he spoke. 6 months ago, one evening, the three of us were at Mom's house. Family dinner. My mom, my brother, and her. We were sitting at the table, chatting. Everything was normal. He shifted in his seat. Then both of them got up. Both said, I have work. An urgent situation came up. They said. I believe them again. There was such deep anger in his voice, but at himself. He was angry at himself. They left. I stayed home with my mom. We were just sitting there talking. Then his breathing changed. Then I noticed. Her purse was in the living room. She'd forgotten her phone. His hands started trembling. I opened it. I shouldn't have. But I did. The password was my birthday. I got in, looked at the messages. The room filled with silence. And there I saw it all, he said. Messages with my brother. Hundreds of them. Messages going back years. I love you messages. Let's meet messages. I can't come today. Daniel is suspicious messages. His voice cracked. I was suspicious. But I couldn't find proof. Because both of them were such good liars. He looked down at his hands. And the worst part, his eyes welled up. The worst part was that same day she'd written I love you to me too. At the same time. The same minute. She'd write I love you to me, then write when should we meet to my brother. After saying that sentence, the weight of it hung in the air between us. And in that moment, I realized there was more to this story. Much darker things. Because the tension in Daniel's body when he mentioned his brother, that wasn't just anger about cheating, it came from somewhere much deeper. After that first session, Daniel didn't come for 2 weeks. He canceled the appointment. I'm not ready, he said. I didn't push. Because I knew some stories needed time to be told. The 3rd week, he came back. This time he was different. There were dark circles under his eyes. He hadn't shaved. His clothes were neat, but as if he'd put them on mechanically. Robotic. Emotionless. He sat down, said nothing. I waited too. Sometimes silence told more than words. 10 minutes passed, then he spoke. I still love her. His voice was flat. No emotion. Isn't that ridiculous to say? Someone who cheated on me for years, slept with my brother, lied to me every day. I still love her. A beat? But I do. I think about her every day. I wonder every day. Where she is, what she's doing, if she's with my brother, if she's alone. My mind is always on her. I asked what happened after that day. Did they talk? He nodded. Yes. That night I waited. When she came home to get her phone, I gave it to her. Did you forget this? I said. Her face went pale. She understood. She knew that I knew. He leaned back in the chair. She started crying. She apologized. I made a mistake, she said. Forgive me, she said. I love you, she said. His voice dropped. But there's something with your brother too, she said. I can't leave him, she said. When he said that sentence, his entire body tensed. I can't leave him. She said she can't leave him. Why can't you leave him, I asked. I don't know, she said. He doesn't treat me well. He's violent. He cheats on me, but I can't leave him, she said. He looked at me, and I felt sorry for her. The woman who betrayed me, cheated on me, lied to me for years, I felt sorry for her. Because my brother was treating her badly. See? How ridiculous? There was such deep anger in his voice, but directed at himself. At this point, I'd noticed something. When Daniel talked about his brother, he wasn't just showing anger. There was fear too, very hidden, very suppressed, but it was there. I asked how his relationship with his brother was. The silence stretched. Bad? He finally said. It's always been bad. Why? He hesitated, closed his eyes, took a deep breath. Because my brother is selfish. He's always been that way. He'd take whatever he wanted. He'd take from me too. He'd take my toys, he'd take my friends, he'd take my money. He opened his eyes. He'd take everything from me. That phrase, everything from me, implied much more. I asked what everything meant. He looked at me, and in that look, I saw there was something unspoken. Something very deep, very dark. Maybe I'll tell you someday, but not now. I didn't push, because traumas closed up when pushed. They'd open when the time was right. In the sessions after that, Daniel slowly started to open up, but everything was fragmented, like a puzzle. And I was adding one piece each session. One day he told me, I still call her, I text her, I ask how are you? She responds, we chat, as if nothing ever happened. His voice caught, but I know, when she's talking to me, she's also calling my brother. She's writing to both of us at the same time, telling both of us, I miss you. There was such deep pain in his voice, and my brother, his jaw clenched. My brother laughs at me, says how you doing bro? Pats my back, acts like nothing happened. He swallowed. But I know he was with her that night. I know he lied to me. I asked why he still kept in touch with her. He closed his eyes. I don't know, maybe hoping she'll change. Maybe hoping she'll leave my brother, maybe hoping she'll come back to me. But there was no hope in his voice, only desperation. Looking at Daniel, I saw a trauma bond. He was addicted to that woman, but it wasn't a healthy attachment. It was a traumatic bond. Because that woman was both causing him pain and appearing like his only safe harbor. And Daniel, he'd turned that pain into a habit. But the real question was, why did he accept it so easily? Why did he feel so helpless? Why did he see himself as so worthless? The answer lay much further back, in his childhood, in his relationship with his brother. In the sixth session, Daniel told me something else. He began, when I first met her, I introduced her to my brother. This is my brother, I said. She smiled, said nice to meet you. His breathing became shallow, and my brother, he looked at her, with such a look that I should have noticed then, but I didn't. I asked what kind of look it was. Interested, very interested, as if he'd seen her, from the very first moment. He shifted his weight, and then in the days after, my brother kept asking about her. How's it going, he'd say. Is she a good person, he'd say. I thought my brother was just being interested. Brotherly concern, I thought. His voice dropped, but it wasn't. He'd been planning it from day one. I asked when it started. I don't know, but when I looked at the messages, the oldest message was from 3 years ago. Meaning while I'd been with her for 3 years, my brother had been with her too. When he said that sentence, the anger, pain, disappointment in his voice, 3 years. For 3 years both of them lied to me. For 3 years I thought I was happy, but actually, they were playing a game. He looked down, and my brother, he's always been like that, always playing games, always manipulating, always taking what he wanted. That phrase, always taking what he wanted, implied so much more. At this point, I'd understood. Daniel's relationship with his brother wasn't just rivalry. There was a power imbalance. There was control. And perhaps there was abuse too. In the 8th session, something new emerged. Daniel told me about an incident from years ago. This wasn't the first time, he said quietly. His hands gripped the armrests. There was another time, 2 years into our relationship, I found out she'd kissed someone at a party. I leaned forward slightly. She was drunk. She said she didn't remember. She cried, apologized, said it would never happen again. He looked at me, and I forgave her, because I loved her, because I thought it was just a mistake. His voice became harder, but now I realized she saw me as someone who could be cheated on, someone whose kindness could be used, someone who'd always forgive. He was right. When I looked at their relationship dynamic, I saw a pattern. The woman had learned early on that Daniel would accept betrayal, that he'd internalize the pain, that he wouldn't leave. And why? Because Daniel had learned in childhood that love meant pain, that staying meant survival, that speaking up meant danger. This wasn't just about a cheating girlfriend. This was about a man who'd been trained from childhood to accept mistreatment as normal. In the 9th session, Daniel talked about his family for the first time. My parents divorced when I was 5, he said. My dad left, just packed up and left. My mom had to work double shifts at the hospital. She's a nurse. She was never home. He looked at the window. My brother was older. He was supposed to take care of me. But his voice trailed off. He didn't take care of me. He did other things. The way he said other things made my skin crawl. Mom would work night shifts, sometimes 2-3 nights in a row. It would just be me and my brother at home. His hands started shaking, and those nights were when it happened. I asked gently what happened. He didn't answer right away. The silence was heavy. Games, he finally said. He'd say we were playing games, but they weren't games. His breathing became irregular. I was 7, maybe 8, he was 13, and he couldn't finish. I gave him time, didn't push. He'd tell me this is normal. He'd tell me all brothers do this. He'd tell me if you tell anyone, I'll hurt you. His voice broke, and I believed him, because I was a child, because I didn't know better, because I was scared. When Daniel said those words, he was no longer a 30-year-old doctor. He was a 7-year-old terrified child. How long did it continue, I asked softly. Until I was 12. Then I hit puberty. He lost interest, but tears filled his eyes. But the damage was done. I was already broken. He looked at me, and now he's taking the woman I love. Again, he's taking something from me. Again, he's controlling me. Again, he's making me feel worthless. His voice rose, and I can't do anything, because he's still stronger. I'm still weak. He's still in control. I'm still defenseless. When he said those sentences, Daniel couldn't control himself anymore. He was crying, shouting. All his pain, all his anger, all his helplessness was pouring out. And I just sat there. I gave him space. Because sometimes the greatest healing came from letting emotions out. What Daniel described was classic childhood sexual abuse trauma. This type of trauma affected a person's entire life. It destroyed self-esteem, the ability to form relationships, sense of security, body perception, everything. And the worst part, when the abuser was a family member, the victim blamed themselves. Because he's my family, he loves me, I must have done something wrong, they think. Daniel had experienced exactly this. His brother had abused him. But at the same time, they lived in the same house. They ate at the same table. They were family. This created a massive cognitive dissonance in Daniel's mind. My brother does bad things to me, but he's my brother. He must love me. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. Maybe I'm the one at fault. This internal voice had worn Daniel down for years. And now as an adult, he was reliving the same dynamic. His brother was hurting him again. But Daniel was still blaming himself. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe that's why she chose my brother. Maybe I'm worthless. This was the cycle of trauma, the whiplash effect. The victim constantly blamed themselves, because blaming the abuser was much more terrifying. In the 11th session, Daniel cried for the first time. I still love her, he said, tears streaming down his face. But I know she never loved me. Maybe she doesn't love my brother either. Maybe she's using both of us. But she can't break away from my brother. Why? I don't know. He wiped his eyes. And my brother, he's using her. He's violent with her. He cheats on her. But she still stays. I asked what he wanted. A long silence. I don't know. Once I wanted to get married, have kids, build a happy life. His voice dropped. But now I just want to forget. But I can't. His voice cracked, because everything reminds me of her. Every day at the hospital, something reminds me. Every evening when I go home, I think about her. Every night when I lie in my bed alone, I worry about her. He looked at me with exhausted eyes. And my brother, I see him at Mom's house. Every Sunday dinner, every holiday, I look at his face. And I know he was with her last night, that he'll be with her tonight. His voice broke completely, and I can't do anything, because I'm weak. I've always been weak. After he said that sentence, silence filled the room. I told Daniel, you're not weak. You're someone who experienced trauma, and trauma changes a person's perception of power. It makes you feel small. But the truth is, you survived. You made it to today. You're sitting here, right now, and you're telling your story. That's not weakness, that's strength. Daniel looked at me. There was shock in his eyes, as if he was hearing this sentence for the first time. Daniel's behavior was a classic trauma symptom, going back repeatedly to the painful situation. Because the brain loved what was familiar. Even if the trauma was familiar, it felt safe. For Daniel, suffering, being neglected, feeling worthless, these were familiar. They'd been familiar since childhood, and that woman was making him experience these feelings again. That's why he couldn't let go. At the same time, watching her was a search for control, because as a child, he had no control. Now, at least he could see what was happening. Even if it was painful, it created a sense of control. But the real problem was, Daniel saw himself as a victim. And the victim role was a feeling of powerlessness. If Daniel was going to heal, he first needed to step out of that role. He needed to see himself not as a victim, but as a survivor. In the 15th session, Daniel sat quietly. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then he took a deep breath. I need to tell you something else, but it's very difficult. Take your time, I said. You're safe here. A long silence. Then he spoke. My brother, when I was a child, he sexually abused me. When he said that sentence, the entire room seemed to freeze. My breath caught, but I had to remain professional. I had to stay calm. How old were you? I asked gently. 7, maybe 8. I don't remember exactly. But I remember. I feel it in my body. I feel it every day. His voice cracked. Those games he talked about, they weren't games. It was abuse. But I was a child. I didn't know. He'd say this is normal. He'd say everyone does this. He'd say if you tell, I'll hurt you. He took a shaky breath. And I never told anyone because I was scared. Because I was ashamed. Because maybe I thought I was guilty too. Tears fell from his eyes. But I wasn't guilty. I was a child. I was defenseless. He was powerful. He was in control. The silence stretched. Until what age did it continue? I asked softly. 12. Until I was 12. Then I hit puberty. He lost interest. But he looked broken. But the damage was done. I was already shattered. He met my eyes. And now he's sleeping with the woman I love, again taking something from me, again controlling me, again making me feel worthless. His voice rose. And I can't do anything. Because he's still powerful. I'm still weak. He's still in control. I'm still defenseless. When he said those sentences, all the walls came down. He was crying, his whole body shaking, all his pain, all his rage, all his helplessness, flooding out. And I sat there, gave him space, because sometimes the greatest healing was simply allowing feelings to exist. What Daniel described was textbook childhood sexual abuse trauma. These types of traumas affected every aspect of a person's life. Self-worth, relationship skills, sense of safety, body image, everything was destroyed. And the worst part, when the abuser was a family member, the victim blamed themselves. Because he's my family, he loves me, I must have done something bad, they'd think. Daniel had lived exactly this. His brother had abused him, but they also lived under the same roof, ate at the same table, were family. This created massive conflict in Daniel's mind. My brother does bad things to me, but he's my brother. He must love me. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. Maybe I'm guilty. This internal voice had destroyed Daniel for years. And now, as an adult, he was reliving the same dynamic. His brother was hurting him again, but Daniel was still blaming himself. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe that's why she chose my brother. Maybe I'm worthless. This was the trauma cycle. The boomerang effect. The victim constantly self-blamed. Because blaming the abuser felt far more terrifying. In the 17th session, Daniel was calmer. He wasn't crying, but there was deep exhaustion in his eyes. You know, I've never told anyone about the abuse, not in my entire life. He looked at his hands. I asked why. Because I was ashamed. Because no one would believe me. Because my brother would say nothing happened. Because my family would say you're lying. He met my gaze. But it did happen. It happened and I've carried it my whole life. And now that same brother is hurting me again. But in a different way. I asked what he wanted to do. Long silence. I don't know. Once I wanted revenge, I wanted to destroy him, but now, his voice softened. Now I just want to be free. I just want to be free from this. He leaned forward. But how? How do I break free? I see him every Sunday at Mom's. I think about her every day. How do I break free? That question, that desperate question, was the central question of the entire treatment. The question Daniel asked was the question most trauma survivors asked. How do I break free? The answer wasn't simple. Because breaking free from trauma wasn't just about distance. Trauma in the body, it lived in the mind. It lived in memories. What Daniel needed to do first was accept the trauma. Yes, this happened to me. Yes, it wasn't fair. Yes, I wasn't a victim, I'm a survivor. Then, understand the impact of that trauma. How did this trauma affect my relationships? How did it affect my self-worth? How did it affect my choices? And then slowly, step out of that trauma. Set boundaries. Say no. Protect himself. But most importantly, even if he couldn't forgive, he needed to release. Because forgiveness wasn't for the abuser. It was for his own peace. In the 20th session, Daniel had made a decision. I'm getting my own place, he said. Not living near my mom anymore. I'm getting my own apartment across town. He took a breath. I know it won't be easy. I know my mom will be upset, but I can't anymore. I can't keep seeing my brother every week. I asked about the woman. Long silence. I blocked her, he said. Blocked her number, blocked her on social media. She can't text me anymore, can't call me anymore. He looked at me. At first it was so hard. Every day I wanted to unblock her. Every day I wanted to check, did she message? But a small light appeared in his eyes. But I held myself back. For the first time, I saw a glimmer of hope. And now it's been 3 weeks since we've talked. And you know what? I feel a little more at peace. A little more free. That phrase, a little more free, was small but incredibly meaningful. The step Daniel took was crucial. Because for trauma survivors, the hardest thing was setting boundaries. Daniel was saying no for the first time in his life. Protecting himself for the first time. Putting his own needs first for the first time. This wasn't easy. Because the voice inside still said, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm bad, maybe if I lose her I'll be alone. But Daniel was moving forward despite that voice. And that was true courage. In the 25th session, Daniel had moved to his own apartment. You know, he said, the first night I was scared. Scared of being alone. But then I realized I was actually never alone. Even with my family I was alone. But now in my own place, my own space, I'm truly free. There was a small smile in his eyes. And my brother, he started calling me, asked, why did you move? Said, come back. But He straightened his shoulders. I didn't answer. He looked at me directly. For the first time I didn't answer. For the first time I said no. For the first time I protected myself. That sentence was everything. I asked about her. I still think about her, he admitted. He was honest. But I don't worry about her anymore. I don't try to save her anymore. Because I realized I can't save her. She has to save herself. His voice was steady. And I have to save myself. When he said that sentence, Daniel was no longer that broken man. He was slowly becoming a healing person. Daniel's story isn't over. Because trauma stories never completely end. But Daniel was at the beginning of the road to healing. He was no longer a victim. He was a survivor. He'd distanced himself from his brother, he'd let go of that woman, and most importantly, he was beginning to forgive himself. Because the greatest impact of trauma was self-blame. I wasn't good enough. I was weak. I deserved it. But Daniel now knew he was a child. He was defenseless. He wasn't guilty. And that awareness was everything. I'm still working with Daniel. He still struggles, still wakes up at night sometimes, still thinks about her, but he's not helpless anymore. He's not powerless anymore. Now he's in control of his own life. And that was the greatest victory. I hope this story helps you see your own life, your feelings, or the people around you in a different light. I hope this story helps you understand yourself and others better. I'd love to hear something about you in the comments, to know you and your story a little better. If you want to share what's on your mind, you can write to the email address in my profile. And if this story touched you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. To stay updated on the next real-life story, click the bell icon to turn on notifications. Before we end, I want to ask you a few questions. Take a moment to think about them. What do you think about this story? Does Daniel's journey remind you of anything in your own life, or in the lives of people you know? Can wounds this deep truly heal? Or do we just learn to live with the scars? What does healing even mean when someone has suffered this much? If you were Daniel's mother and you learned the truth years later, could you forgive yourself? How do you think she lives with herself now, knowing she wasn't there to protect him? What would you say to the 7-year-old Daniel if you could go back in time? And what would you say to the 30-year-old Daniel who walked into my office that first day? Do you believe that speaking your truth, even when it's terrifying, is always worth it? Or are there some truths better left unspoken? Why do you think the woman stayed with the brother who abused her when she could have had Daniel? What does that say about her own trauma? If you were Daniel's friend and found out the whole truth, what would you tell him? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. Your perspective matters, your voice matters.